All right. Well, I'm excited. I think that we should get this started. Dorian, kick it off for us.
All right, sure. I just want to kind of start off. This is really designed for small business owners. As we were thinking about, putting together a podcast like this, me and Madeline were just talking about, like, can you imagine like Monday mornings being something that you were excited about, not something that you were dreading? When I think back to when I made the decision to open my business, I did so because I wanted more freedom. I wanted to do something that I enjoyed, and I wanted to be able to build some wealth. One of the things that I figured out just over the course of this entrepreneurship journey is that you need a support team around you if you're going to accomplish your goals. Madeline and I, over the next 6 weeks, want to be that support guide. We've put together some do-it-yourself topics that you're going to be able to implement to just, accelerate growth in your business. And really, one of the foundations of everything that we're going to share with you is the Power 6 Leader Program. It's a program that I've been working with clients on over the last year, and it's just been amazing to see the amount of growth that's come. So I hope you enjoy the ride, and please, throughout this call, even after the call, if you're watching this on video, if you have questions, shoot us an email. We'd love to, continue to give you information and help you accomplish your goals.
Yeah, we're really excited about not only this collaboration and being available live, but we're also planning on sharing the recordings. So some of you may be watching this after the fact. We appreciate even your viewing, and we encourage you to reach out to us. We've made this available. It will be on YouTube as well as our own LinkedIn profile. So at any stage in your process or in your viewership, we encourage you to reach out and to connect with us. My name is Madeline McMahon. I am a fractional marketing strategist, and Dorian and I met through a networking event. And if you're familiar with me, I think a lot of these first viewers will probably know me a little more personally. You'll know that networking is one of my favorite things to talk about in business ownership, in collaboration. And so it felt very natural for Dorian and I to continue the networking conversation even beyond that first experience. And the more we talked about our individual clients and our individual experiences, the more we saw crossover. A lot of the business owners that I'm working with could really benefit from coaching and insight from that process. And Dorian, you mentioned as well that along your journey, you've seen opportunities for marketing assistance or better marketing insight in their systems. So before we jump right in, Dorian, how did you get your start and what brings you here as a coach today?
No, I spent 21 years working for 7-Eleven, and that really was the foundation of like much of what I know and learned around business. While I was with 7-Eleven, I had various roles. In my last role, I was the vice president of operations. I was responsible for 1,000 stores up and down the East Coast. And something that a lot of people don't necessarily know or realize is that 7-Eleven is a huge company. So within 7-Eleven, because I had, operational responsibilities, I worked with the marketing team on our marketing strategy. I worked with our pricing team on our pricing strategy. I was responsible for site selection and just anything that like goes into a building. I had my hands on, and that really put me in a good position when I left the company to go into small business consulting. Whether somebody's looking to develop an operations plan or they're trying to figure out how to navigate a marketing strategy, I know enough to be dangerous and to be able to help them out. And then, I pull in partners like you whenever things get a little bit outside of my wheelhouse and able to bring in an expert to help us take things to the next level.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing those details with us. And it really has been fascinating to see the crossover, to see ways that we can help each other and uncovering a pain point and when people don't know what they don't know. So I one of the objectives we both have is to share information with you today, bring you into the story, help you better understand what the steps could be. And we're going to kick that off our 6-part virtual workshop, Profit and Love in Your Organization. We're going to kick it off today with week 1, which we have labeled as motivating team action. Ignite the fire, get your people to actually show up and actually care about the vision. And when you first sent me some of the topics that we'd be talking about, and when we were first first collaborating on ideas, what really stood out to me about this week one, I love motivating, I love thinking of team, but it's actually the verb, it's action. So I'm curious, as you start to organize your thoughts, as you get this process started, how did you land on motivating team action first and why that verb specifically?
It's super interesting because I have to tell you, like, I can't take credit for any of the concept. Dr. Rudy Jackson, he's the person to put together the concept. But when he pulled me into the fold and we started talking about things, we had a lot of debates about what comes first. When you're trying to build a team, when you're trying to accomplish something, do you need trust first or do you need a vision?
Mm.
And what we landed on was that you really needed to make sure that you had a vision because once you have a vision, you're able to kind of attract people around you. And with that vision, you give direction to the action that people need to take. So as we, start to work with people and kind of think about like how do you motivate employees? How do you get more out of your workforce? It starts with defining your vision and then using that vision to drive and motivate action.
That makes a lot of sense, right? I think a common frustration, certainly for some of your more entry level employees, is if you don't understand why, it's hard to understand the buy-in. Okay, so could you give me an example of how you take that one step further, or how have you seen this start to develop in your experience?
Yeah, no, I'll share, a perfect example. When I first, launched into having my business, like many people, the first customer I had was an old friend. So, I was letting him know what I was doing, and he had shared with me that he was having some challenges within his business and just wanted to try to see how could I help him take his business to the next level. It's been a good journey over the last 2 years working with him because what I've experienced time over and over again is that everyone is an expert in their wheelhouse. This individual is probably the best at what he does. What he wasn't necessarily the best at the time was leading people, business development, some of those other things. He had grown a whole lot over the course of, his time running the business. He had learned a lot, but I've spent the last 21 years managing people, building strategy, things of that nature. So when I was able to come in, we were really able to kind of do a CSA around his business, identify what were the things that were working, and then develop a vision for where he wanted to take his business.
Now we'll pause here for just a second because we want to make sure we include everyone. What's a CSI?
Okay, so CSA is a current situation analysis. So it's a term that I used a lot when I was working with franchisees at 7-Eleven, and it's really taken the pause to say, what's going on right now? And at the time, he had been in business for, around 10 years. He had hit that six-figure revenue mark that he had been striving for, but he really felt like he was working too hard. He had 7 employees. It was kind of defined what their roles and responsibilities were, but there were a lot of gaps. And those gaps ended up falling on him as the owner because anybody that owns a business knows if nobody else is assigned a task, it falls on your desk. So he was really stressed and a little bit overwhelmed by just all of the things that he had to do.
So what was that first step? Once he acknowledged that stress, once he realized that that was the mindset, what was the action? What
Yeah.
what what action did you take next?
The first step, and I have a downloadable tool that you can use. It's called the Balance Scorecard, and it's not something that I created. It's something that I think a professor at Harvard created like 30 years ago. You can Google it and read about it, but it's one of the most effective tools that you can use in business. And what the tool really asks you to do is to slow down and define what are the key metrics that are important for running your business. The slight tweak that I've done, if you download my version, is that I have a vision statement at the front. And inside of the vision statement, there's 4 questions that I ask all business owners when I work with them. The first one is, who will you serve? Because the only way that you're going to get business is if you're taking care of somebody's needs. The second one is, how will you serve them? So we need to define like what are the processes or services that you're going to be providing them. The next one is around how are you going to make the world better? Because if you're not making the world better, like why are you getting out of bed? And then the last one is like, let's take those 3 statements and create a vision statement because this is going to be the bedrock for everything else that we're going to do working together, whether we're trying to recruit employees, we're trying to delegate tasks, or we're trying to triple the earnings, we need to have clarity around those questions.
Okay, so mapping that out, identifying those things, bring it back for me though. How do I get that buy-in from my team? How is it a matter of the performance and how I articulate it? Is it the consistency? What can I do once I know exactly what it is I want? How do I get that buy-in? How do I create that action in my team?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because, when we look at the Power 6 model and what are the different skills that we say a leader needs to have to be successful, the first one is having that vision. So doing the work, you know, making that balanced scorecard, defining the key metrics that you're trying to accomplish is kind of the first step. The second step is building trust within your team. And there's a lot of different ways
Mm,
to build trust. We have something that we call anchor concepts, which is if you're trying to get X, you got to do Y. And the why here is psychological safety. So, as a leader, you got to create an environment where your employees know that you're looking out for their best interest, that there's honesty, that there's candor within the relationship, and that they're encouraged. And it's actually an expectation that they're honest with you about what's working and what's not working. And then conversely, that you're going to give them the same. And that's how you guys are going to have a mutually beneficial relationship. And that relationship really is going to be the fuel that drives growth within the organization.
that in particular really resonates with me. I have a pretty diverse background, and one of the chapters of my career, I managed apartment complexes and experienced some really incredible frameworks and structures through that organization. But one of my favorite takeaways was something that my direct supervisor implemented, and she called it a favorites list.
Okay.
And she collected information from individuals about things that are important to them where they are. And the idea was instead of just buying pizza for the group for lunch, you have an idea of people's preferences for the food
Yeah.
that you order, or you know that someone has a dietary restriction. One of my a silly but favorite example of that is I worked with someone who was very, very dedicated Dunkin' Donuts consumer. If you had given that person a Starbucks gift card, it would have almost been offensive. So how much does that matter? How much do you need to get to know the person for them to understand your vision in this process?
So when I work with business owners, I feel like a lot of people, they understand the concept of value proposition when it comes to customers. They don't take
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time to think about it when it comes to employees. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story. When I was in college, I did an internship with a financial advisor, and the guy was like super successful. And one of the first things that he showed me was this profile that he had for the clients he worked with. And I was like, "So what is that?" And he's like, "Well, before I sit down with one of my clients, because he's selling high end, stocks and bonds and things like that, I like to like remind myself, what's the name of their dog? How many kids do they have? Where do they like to vacation? Because these are all things that show that I care and that I know about them. And some people might say, "Hey, that's cheating. Like if you can't remember it in your head, like why?" But the reality is that as a leader, you got a lot of things going on. It's hard to keep track of all that information. So by you actually saying my employees are important enough that I'm going to take the time to write down like this information about them, that I can know that they like Dunkin' Donuts, or I can know that they have a 5-year-old. It can put you in a position to be even more impactful as a leader, because when you reward somebody, when you recognize with someone, you want it to be something that actually adds value. And there's nothing more valuable than a personalized experience.
Yeah, that's really powerful. So if you were giving advice like this to a current business owner, how do you manage the time component of that, right? Like how much of my bandwidth and my energy do I need to invest in that discovery, and how much of it is just making sure I have an idea of my staff? How much of this should how much of my time should this consume
Yeah.
in bringing my team into my mission?
So we have a success equation that we coach people on, and that's culture times process equals results. So with everything that we're talking about, I'm always encouraging people, like, how do we build a process around this? Well, when you interview somebody, you ask them a lot of questions. Can we hold on to that information and put it into a file so we can use it later? When we're having one-on-ones with employees, we learn a lot of information. Do we take 5 minutes after that meeting to update our file so that we have the most current information? Uh, It's really about like looking at what are the different habits that you have in place now and how can you work smarter, not just harder. If I come in and I tell a client, oh, you need to spend 10 hours doing this, nobody has 10 hours. So a lot of times we look at what are you doing right now? How can we add like 5 minutes to the task that you're doing that's going to generate, a whole lot of benefit to you?
Okay, so something else I talk to people a lot about is tools.
Yeah.
And you and I are both really big fans of
Yeah.
education and resources and information being available, but there's a lot of options out there. So, how do I navigate, intentionally creating this vision and this mission and intentionally articulating it, but also keeping track of it or knowing I'm using the best tool to keep track of it? What does that management look like?
Well, so I'm going to reference a very smart young lady. She might actually be on the call. I might be talking to her right now. That introduced me to a new tool within Google Docs, where like inside of Google Docs now you have the ability to set up different tabs. And for me, it's just been a game changer as far as, okay, I don't have to have all these different files saved in all these different places. And I'm an Excel guy. I absolutely love Excel because it has tabs, but everything's not a number. I think the key is, you want to sit there and know individuals like Madeline that are going to introduce you to new ideas and concepts, play around and figure out what fits you. Every shoe that you try on in the store, you're not going to take home, but you're only going to find the perfect shoes if you actually go to the store and test them out.
And try them on. Yeah. Okay, so in that, taking that same thought, then, if I were to find free resources and tools, because I know they're out there, and of course, we're always happy to share the ones that we have. But what is kind of like the trigger point, or what is the sign that it's time for me to talk to an expert? If I've done the work, if I've got this worksheet completed, but I can't tell if it's being implemented or
Yeah.
not, or when do you phone a friend? When is it time to invest in someone who knows more about the subject matter than you might?
Now, I think that's a great question. And one of the things I'm a big advocate for is free. I feel like, there's so many nonprofits out there like SCORE, there's so many government organizations like the different economic developments. And then you have like paid membership groups like the chambers that for a small amount of money, you can get a huge amount of benefit. So I always encourage people check out all the free resources, leverage them as much as you can. If you're not quite sure about free resources, I actually have a list of a bunch of free resources on my website. Send me a message, I'll send you the link to it. But like once you've actually started to see a decline in your learning curve, that you're just having to dedicate too much time to kind of get to the next level, that's the time to bring in an expert. And it
Okay.
actually links back into the balance scorecard. If you looked at it, what you would see as the top is there's financials. You got your money goal. The second one is your customer goal. But then under there, that really gets into your development. What are the processes that you have in place? Are they working? Are they helping you hit your goals? If they're not, then it's time to upgrade a new process. What are the people that you have in place? Is there additional training you need to provide them? Are there new people that you need to bring into your circle to help you drive your business forward? By you using the balance scorecard, it's going to help you to identify, hey, I've carried as much of this load as I can on my own. It's
Mm.
time for me to get another person to help me carry this load, and that's what's going to allow you to move faster.
Something I wrote down from a previous conversation that I'm going to bring back up just because I think that it's something fun for you to run with. You mentioned once that finding the right person or the right coach or the right environment is kind of like a treasure hunt. So in knowing that you have to search and you got to dig, how do you identify the treasure? Is it just that you feel better? Is it a certain metric in your performance? How do you know that you've gotten onto treasure so that you make sure you keep digging in that spot?
I think with anything that you do in business, you have to have clarity as far as what is the goal you're trying to accomplish. So I'll reference back to the one small business owner that I was working with. When he originally reached out to me, he said, I don't want to be doing this forever. Like, I feel like I'm working super hard and, I want to grow my business to a point so I can sell it. Now I was like, cool. Walked him through like forecasting and all the like stuff that I learned when I was getting my MBA that would bore you to death. But like we defined, like this is the amount of income that you need to make in order to sell your business for this amount. Let's build the plan. So we built the plan. And the plan was we're going to get there in 5 years. We actually got there in two. And it was just like, wow, like so much growth, like grow the revenue. Like he's like the business is getting easier to run because we define roles and responsibilities. And he got an offer. And he was so excited when he called me. He's like, I got an offer. And it was da da da. I was like, should I take it? I was like, I don't know. Do you think you should take it? He was like, no, I ain't taking it. If we did this much in 2 years, like, what can we do in the next 3 years? So to me, it's like it's so awesome when you get to work with somebody and help them. What I know is I know how to manage people. I know how to build strategy. I know how to connect the dots. And a lot of times when you're a business owner, you're so far in the weeds that you can't separate yourself from the
Mm.
work enough to kind of see the opportunities. And that is where I think it's important to bring in somebody else. When you feel like you're working harder than what you should be, that should be the trigger. It's time for me to reach out. It's time for me to, talk to some other people. And I encourage you, talk to your network. Referrals are probably the best way to kind of find people. Um, there's a lot of people that can talk really well, but don't focus on people that can talk well. Focus on people that have a history of performance because those are the people that are likely to help you the most.
Something that I'm starting to see a pattern of in the support that you're describing and what you're offering is an accountability component. I imagine, it's not just knowing something needs to be done. It's not just developing that strategy. It's someone verifying that you implement. It's someone with vested interest in its success. So I'm gonna take us in a different direction here.
Mm.
What do you do when you are a team of one? I work with a lot of uh, solopreneurs or founders in their startup phase and people that imagine they're going to get to the places that you're describing, but they're not there yet. So where's the accountability? How can I implement these ideas and these conversations if it's just me right now?
Yeah, the first person you have to lead is yourself. And the reality is that when I'm working with solopreneurs, typically they're not moving fast because they actually don't have clarity on their vision. Today they want to go this way, tomorrow they want to go this way. And the analogy I always use with people is, my headquarters is based in Ashland, Virginia, which is just north of Richmond. And if I want to go to New York, like I know I have to go north. And there's a lot of different ways that I can go north. I can go up 95, I can go up 301. But at the end of the day, like if I'm looking at the compass and it's saying I'm going south, I'm going in the wrong direction. And I think that as a solopreneur, you need to declare what is your true north. You need to define what your vision is.
Mm.
You need to trust yourself. You need to trust that you have the skills that you need and that if you don't have them, that you're going to be able to develop. And then you need to set some clear metrics. All of the things that we talk about when managing a team, but you have to start and you have to build those skills individually first. Now, once you master them as an individual, then you start to see the profits, you start to see the growth that allows you to hire on people. Generally, the first hires are going to be contractors. And when you're managing contractors, they're not your employees, but you got to be clear about your vision. You got to be clear about the goals so that everybody can work towards it. But those skills that you develop just managing yourself are transferable and can help you, manage a team more effectively.
So I think what's good about that too is the opportunity to remember to focus on your strengths, focus on your expertise. But I hadn't thought of that as accountability for the contractors or the vendors that you might be working with. That's really interesting. Um, what about quantifying not only the return on investment but the success? If you're still in the do it yourself stage, if it's still just you, what does this process do, or how can you identify wins and how to celebrate them?
Yeah, I think that, whenever you think about like a solopreneur, they're, if we're going to be honest, they're overwhelmed. Most people they go into owning their own business and they're accustomed to having a boss. They're accustomed to somebody else telling them direction and all those things. It's a transformation that you have to go to become self-directed. And a key part of being self-directed is establishing micro goals. And I say micro goals because the road to prosperity is long. And you want to make sure you're making progress in that direction, and you need some things to kind of refuel you and keep you going. If you do something as simple as say, I have an Instagram page, and all you do is look at people and they got 100, They got 100 million followers. You're not going to be motivated. It's like, how am I going to get to 100 million followers? Like, I can't
Yeah.
do, like, I'm not good enough. But if you set a simple goal and say, you know what, by the end of the week, I want to have five. That's my micro goal. And then you get the confidence. It's like, man, I picked up five subscribers. That was easy. Well, how about if I do 10 this week? Well, I did 10. How about if I do 50? And if you cascade your goals up that way, you're building your confidence, you're building your momentum. And a big part of, the Power 6 model, we talk about protecting momentum. At a
Mm.
minimum, whatever momentum you have going, we want to protect. But ultimately, we want to figure out how do we reduce friction so that we can move even faster.
Man, I love that. I have the horrible job of reminding people that marketing never ends. It's never done, right? There is no one magic thing. There is no version of viral where you just auto viral forever,
Yeah.
So in knowing that even if you do exactly everything, all the win for that day, you still have to get up and do it tomorrow. That can be tough when it's just you. That can be tough. So I really love the intentionality behind setting metrics to celebrate a win. We don't always get the opportunity to do that. We don't always think to do that. And where I imagine that can be incredibly powerful is if you build that muscle for yourself. If you set that structure for yourself, when you have others on your team, it's that much easier to implement it and to help others on your team identify the wins on purpose. Because sometimes you got to find a win. They're
Yeah.
not always as obvious. The return on investment of time or effort is not always literally a sale. Sometimes it's that brand ambassador or, a brand awareness, that step in the right direction. So,
So
okay.
before you
Yeah.
go on, you
Yeah.
just set me up with something I just have to hammer home right here. So we get fixated on like setting a goal and achieving a goal, not recognizing the fact that even when you miss a goal, it's an opportunity to learn. And part of one of the things that we talk about, and you'll hear about this in one of the later podcasts, is how to navigate challenges. When you do, you hit that, oh, we went viral on this, and then you do the next video and you don't. That can be a letdown. How are you going to come back from that? How can you take that as a teachable moment to go back and say, you know what? Well, we went viral because we did this. And if we want to go viral again, we're going to have to do that again. But we got to recognize that you can't go viral every single post. So it's like getting people to step back and really learn from their experiences and using every win and every failure as an opportunity to learn is just an important part of the continuous improvement process that I work with clients on.
So thinking of how many we've talked about a lot of different steps and things that kind of overlap for a business owner, but how often do you encourage people to go back and review those steps? Is this something that we need to recalibrate on monthly? Are we waiting for milestones
Yeah.
or I mean, it sounds like this is a resource I want to look at every day, but what is the best practice for checking in and making sure that you are still driving north on 95?
Yeah. I'll use an example. You led a workshop the other day and somebody asked a question around using AI and does it help you or not? And what I shared with them was my own personal experience with AI of, 6 months ago doing a test where I did a couple of blogs that were exclusively written by me, and then I did a couple of blogs that were AI assisted. And I had this whole like process that I do around writing blogs that was partially influenced by different things that she kind of taught me. And what I discovered was that it made no difference from a performance standpoint. Like whether I spent 3 hours writing it myself or I spent an hour with assist from AI. And
Wow.
so a big part, I think, of anything is doing test and then reflecting on what you learn. The way that we
Mm.
get better, the way that we learn is through trial and error. The light bulb wasn't made the first time that somebody tried at it. So the more you can identify, like this is something that's important enough for me to measure, I'm going to measure it. I'm going to learn from the outcome, and then I'm going to apply those learnings moving forward. That's how you get really smart within your business.
Fantastic. Okay. So through the evolution, having that I love the idea of a coach and a sounding board and an accountability partner. If you're not at a place where you are ready for a coach or you can't justify it, I love knowing that there's structure available and there are free resources to help us build this. Let's say it goes really well. Let's say that I am scaling my business and my staff clearly understands my vision. I'm trying to take that to the next level, maybe through incentivizing. I've talked throughout my career with my clients about an employee advocacy program, for example, where part of your marketing strategy is actually integrated with your team and how they further your message throughout your marketing campaign, for
Yeah.
example. So, right off the top of my head, let's say I've got a team of five, and three of those five people are continuing my message by sharing my content, things like that. How important is an incentive structure for in this process to evolve, or what's your experience like with some type of transactional exchange for
Yeah.
buy-in?
No, I think it's super important. I think that I want to be make an assumption everybody on this call has been an employee at some point. And if you think back hard, one of my first jobs was with McDonald's. And when I worked at McDonald's, there was no manager sitting down talking about like this is our vision, this is our mission, this is your career path, none of that stuff. And I really didn't have a whole lot of motivation to do my job at a high level. Like I was there to make a little bit of money, have fun with my friends, and that was it. Fast forward, 10 years when I was with 7-Eleven and I was managing stores, one of the conversations I would frequently have with employees is, I know that your dream was not to be a 7-Eleven sales associate. Like there's very few kids that like that's what they dream of when they're a kid. Uh, but you're here, and I know that you have a bigger goal. So tell me what your
Mm,
goal is. Oh, I want to become a nurse. Oh, I want to sit there and I want to be a manager. Oh, whatever it is. Okay. Well, I want to figure out how I can help you do that.
mm,
Money. You need money to do that. Well, I can pay you more money if we accomplish this goal. You run through this, you do this at a high level, I can get you a raise. When I was in a higher role, I could have that conversation and say, you do this, I can get you a bonus. So as I work with small business owners, I try to take those experiences that I've had over the course of my career and say, how can we do that here? How can we use that profile that you started with to understand where does your employee want to go? How can we help them to see that if they do the things we're asking them to do, that's going to help them get to where they want to be faster?
mm.
Motivating people is really simple if you just take the time to know and understand people. If people feel safe, they'll tell you exactly what they need to be motivated, and then it's just up to you as a leader to provide that to them.
If people feel safe. Wow. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. In listening to this, what I started to feel a little anxious about is thinking about investing this time and this energy into someone that just takes the next job they're offered.
Yeah.
So, how have you experienced this impact turnover, or how debilitating is it to invest this time and energy into someone and they don't continue and pay forward what they've learned, and things like that? What does that look like in your experience?
So there's a couple things within that. The first one is if you've created psychological safety, you know what your employees' intentions are. You also know what their capabilities are.
Okay.
So if an employee is being honest with you and they say, I want to run a business one day, you know whether or not they have the capabilities or not.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and if they do, then it's like, I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you run a business one day. And I know I've got you for 5 years, or I know I've got you for 3 years. And it's accepting the reality that whether you invest the time or don't invest the time, the employee is going to do what the employee wants to do. Now, conversely, if you take the time to understand an employee and that employee says, I don't ever want to be a boss. Like that's the farthest thing of what I want. What I want is just to have a reliable job where I get to do X and I get paid Y and that I get to enjoy. Then it's like, oh, I've got this employee that I know I'm going to have to replace at one point. I've got this other employee that I know that as long as I treat them right, they're going to stay here for a very, very long time. creating that safety, that
Mm.
time you invest in actually understanding who your employees are, it may cause you more time in the short term, in the short term. But over the course of the 10, 20 years that you're looking to run a business, if you only have 25% turnover, where you only have to replace a quarter of your employees a year, think about how much time you save compared to if you have 50% turnover. That's 50% of the time, more time, like going on Indeed, doing interviews, having performance conversations, doing training, all the stuff that goes
Mm.
into managing people. So it's very hard, it's very challenging to do the difficult things today so that you don't have to do worse things tomorrow. But from both my experience running businesses, my experience working with multiple business owners, the more you do that hard stuff now, the easier things are later on.
And that makes sense. I think that's something that a lot of us know and appreciate, but it can be good to hear that as a
Yeah.
reminder. There's that accountability component.
Yep.
What if I've got someone on my team I really like, and I focus on their strengths, but I'm still not seeing that shared vision. Um, in your experience, is there a threshold for deciding someone's not a good fit, or are you going to maybe make your vision more flexible
Yeah.
to match the person that you really like working with?
Well, I would say that there is some give and take. If as a leader you think you have all the answers and you're not willing to listen to anybody else, um, you're probably wrong, and you're probably going to have a hard time holding on to people. With
Okay.
that said, like you're the boss. Like you started your business because you wanted some things. If it's like me, you wanted some freedom, you wanted some wealth, you wanted to do something that you enjoyed. So you have to define like what are your boundaries, what are the things that you're willing to deal with, and what things you're not willing to deal with. Now, if you're clear with your employees about that, it tends to make things a lot easier because nobody wants to go to a job that they hate. And nobody wants to stay someplace where they know that it will never change. So
Mm.
if you're perfectly clear and you say, like, this is the way things are, it's going to be like this until the day that I sell this business, then you put the power in your employee. It's like, do you want to be miserable every day? There's a lot of places that work. You don't have to come here. I can actually help you find another job. I'll do the reference, but like, let's make sure that we're clear about what things are negotiable and what things aren't negotiable, and then leave it to the employee to make a decision up until the point that that employee is causing harm to the business
Mm.
overall. If that employee, because of their lack of work ethic, their lack of alignment with their vision or other behaviors, are negatively impacting the rest of the team, then unfortunately, you do have to take power out of their hands and say, I'm not going to allow you to damage everyone else that's here.
Yeah. Important to have that awareness, and again, having metrics can hopefully help you
Yeah.
be proactive in those instances. But I'm definitely hearing you that transparency definitely builds trust between your employees and your projects and your vendors and things like that too. We're getting a little bit lower or short on time. We don't have any questions in there right now. I was hoping we could touch a little bit more on beyond the paycheck. A lot of, it's hard not to bring things to revenue and money and think about that dollar and that type of thing. But different people respond to different types of incentives, or buy in comes in different ways. So outside of just giving someone a raise, or giving them the paycheck that they've earned, how do you kind of go beyond just that transactional mindset when you're building the vision with your team?
Yeah, I'm going to go all the way back to, the three questions that I have on the balance score card sheet that you can download from the website. And one of the questions is, how will it make the world better? If you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, there's different needs. There's needs as far as shelter, food, but like once people get beyond like those basic, like I'm getting these things to survive, they start looking for sense of belonging. They start looking for like having a purpose. They start looking for like self-actualization.
Mm.
So the better you can clarify, like, this is what you can get here. Like, these are the things, this is the impact that you can make as an individual, and this is the impact that you can make on the world around you, it becomes very clear because the reality is that we're all different. We all have different passions. Yesterday, I went to an event and it was all beauticians. And sitting in that
Cool.
room, listening to them talk about how they just transform people, that people will be feeling miserable. They come in and get their hair done, and then they walk out like feeling so confident. Like that is the purpose. Like people are willing to like go through the pain, the suffering of their hands being sore and all those things because of
Mhm.
the impact that it has. If you're trying to attract people to your business, yeah, if you say I want to pay you $22 an hour, there's people that are going to show up. But the people that are going to stay are the ones that feel like they're really making a difference within your business and within their community and big picture in the world in general.
That's fantastic. So I'm really excited about doing this 6 week podcast. We're going to cover different components of the program that we've been describing today. And we're hopefully going to have things that lead the topics, but there's going to be opportunity for conversation. Today we covered, I'm gonna go through a list of things I have here, and I'm hoping that'll spark anything you forgot, Dorian. But
Yep.
talking about clarity of vision is key. Again, transparency builds trust, going beyond the paycheck. Focus on strengths within your organization, create a shared vision, something that is not just yours, but something that everyone buys into, promoting psychological safety, which is one of my favorite parts of this conversation, embrace servant leadership, build a tribe mentality, celebrate wins. That's another fan favorite, and utilize resources. And I feel like we successfully touched on all of those in a little bit, but I wanted to give you a chance. Is there something that we wanted to talk about today that we didn't get to yet, or any way to round out what we've covered so far with those bullet points?
There's just a term that, as Dr. Rudy and I have been working on this, he's really set the tone as far as mantras. And he's like, all great organizations have mantras. Nike is just do it. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's what they do. So creating a tribe mentality is really helping people understand like this is the way we do things here. And the more that you can do that as a leader, the more you can say we have values, we stand by these values, we have goals and we're pursuing these goals. This is what's accepted, this is what's not accepted. The more that people's identity can be part of the organization. And when you talk about loyalty, when you talk about people that just live and die for your company, which I think is what all business owners want. It's like people that are going to be truly committed to helping to bring success. You want to sit there and create that shared purpose, that shared identity that we can accomplish more together than we can separate. And the reason that we're together is because we can accomplish more and everyone is benefiting.
That's wonderful. We talked at length about how neither one of us want this to feel like we're selling you something. We don't want this to be a sales pitch, but it does occur to me through this process. Again, there's a lot of this work that someone could do on their own. There's a lot of homework that this could be to set someone up for success with the coach. But I'm going to ask you again, kind of, when do I know I need to go beyond just this worksheet? What can I look out for in myself or my behavior that says, okay, it's time to do a one-on-one, or it's time to think outside of the space that I've been working in?
So, I was doing a discovery call with a client the other day, and they were telling me about like a lot of coaches that are out there, and they sell these like, 6 month packages, 12-month packages. And
Mhm.
I was sharing that like I have a completely different approach. I'm a believer that you should pay for what you need. So if somebody just has a question on, hey, I'm not quite sure if a coach could really like unlock a lot of things for me, like hire me or hire a coach that does single sessions and just give it a test drive. See like what do you walk away with after that session? Um, Generally with me during the first call, I try to help people get some clarity around those 3 questions because as I said, like that is the benchmark for like all of the future progress that we're going to do. So if you are feeling like you're working harder than what you should be, and you're looking to get some help with accountability or just thinking about your business differently, I'd love to just have a conversation with you and help you determine whether or not working with an executive coach like myself would be perfect for you, or because I have a very broad network, if you find that you need help specifically with marketing or with something else, I have great referral partners that I can point you in the right direction that have the same ethos as me as far as we don't want to tie you down to, $10,000 of expense and a 12-month commitment on something that you haven't tried and don't know about. Like you should be able to, just like you go to Costco, have a sample and kind of decide before you buy. When you're working with coaches and consultants, they should be willing and wanting to do that to make sure that it's a good fit in both directions.
I'm going to put you on the spot with an opinion thing here then, that just kind of occurred to me as a question. Is there a benefit of, should I be looking for a coach that's an expert in my field, like maybe for
Yeah.
me in marketing? Should I be looking for a retired marketing executive that's converted into coaching, or is there power in any coaching person? Do you have any personal pro tips on narrowing down the expert that that you invest your time in?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question. And the analogy that I'll use is like with buying a phone. And if you're as old as I am, you know that like phones have kind of changed. The original phones didn't have cameras on it. They didn't, there wasn't AI in it. Um, but if you just need to make a phone call, like all you need is a flip phone. Like, why am I going to pay, $1,000 if all I do is to make a phone call? So I think it's really critical for you to recognize what stage in your business development process you're in. You
Mm.
don't need a super premium high-end coach if you're at an entry level. You don't need the most dynamic website in the world if you're just starting off. So really assessing, and this gets back to the CSA, the current situation analysis, where are you in this moment? What can you afford in your budget from a money standpoint? What can you afford in your budget from a time standpoint? And then find a solution that's going to help you get to the next level and be willing to walk away from somebody once you've outgrown them. The reality is
Wow.
that we all have a kind of a level. And as you grow, you're going to have to leave some people behind in order to kind of move forward.
Sure. Um, This has been great. I'm very excited to continue this conversation. One of the things that we talked about doing was kind of sharing some key takeaways, talking directly to our audience in this. So I'll kick that off. I've got a couple of friends hanging out on the call today. I appreciate everybody for joining. And anybody who watches this later, again, we encourage you to reach out. We are going to record each of these 6 sessions. We are going to share them to YouTube, repurpose them on our social medias. So you should be able to find them. But thinking of me from my seat as a fractional marketing strategist, working with small business teams that are doing it themselves or founders in startup phase, a huge takeaway is definitely I need to know what I'm trying to accomplish. The more I understand my mission, the better I can vet my vendors and communicate to the people that I'm working with and the people that work for me. And not only using the free resources, but intentionally measuring your progress with the resources, not just downloading them and reading them, filling them out, not just downloading, reading, filling them out, but actually reflecting on the action and using those indicators as a sign it's time to phone an expert or phone a friend. If you have the bandwidth and you can go through the resources and you still feel like you need help, here's your permission to look for that coach, to look for that expert. Just because you can do it yourself, just because you can do it alone, doesn't mean that's always going to be the best opportunity or the best option for you. So my hope is that any of my friends and family that are watching this and they've been, on the fence about investing in a coach or investing in an expert, I hope that this is the opportunity that makes you schedule that free one-on-one or get the conversation going. And if not with Dorian, think about that at your next networking engagement. If you're out working the room and you talk to someone who's a coach, buy them a cup of coffee, see what their progress is like, what their process is like. Because to bring it back to what we said earlier, it is a treasure hunt. Finding your vendors is a treasure hunt, finding your people is a treasure hunt. And sometimes you find what looks like a beautiful box and you open it and it was full of mud the whole time. So the analogy went away from me there. But Dorian, key takeaways thinking of your coaching clients and a little more of specific in your wheelhouse versus just small business owners.
Yeah, there's a couple things that come to mind. One is just the power of networking. We met each other at a networking event. I have a process of following up with people afterwards. You have a separate process, and both of the processes work. So we just continue to stay in touch. And I feel just extremely blessed to have the opportunity to do this with you. I've learned so much just in the ramp up for this, and it's elevated my marketing and my communication and my confidence. It's just an endorsement that no matter where you are in your business, there's always somebody that knows more than you, and to always be curious and be connecting and looking for continuous growth. That's how you avoid being stagnant. That's how you continue to elevate your business. The other point that just came to mind is the one that, it references what you just said. I'm part of ICF of Virginia, and each month I meet with around 20 coaches, but it's not always the same coaches. And I say that from the standpoint that just in Metro Richmond, there are easily 500 coaches that I know. Each has a
Wow.
different specialty. Each has like a different reason why you should work with them specifically. And so, from that statement, if you have been thinking about working with a coach, but you're like, yeah, there's something about Dorian that doesn't quite seem right, like reach out to me anyway, because if I understand what you're looking for, I can connect you with somebody that's probably going to be the right fit. And like my goal, like I care more about people being successful than anything else. So if I can't serve you directly, but I can connect you with somebody that can serve you, then I feel like I'm fulfilling my mission in life, and I just look for those opportunities.
I love that. I love that. I love telling people, reminding people there is enough space for everyone. If you are not in the right space, you're just not in the right room. So, again, we're hoping that this is kind of a here's your sign to go out there and do the thing. Take advantage of resources that are available to you. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and know that you're not alone in whatever phase you're at, wherever point you're at. And listening to this, it's very likely that others are struggling, and we don't have to all figure it out independently. There's power in connecting with others that have struggled, and there's power in camaraderie as well. So remember that you're not alone. I just threw up a QR code on the screen for a way that you can keep in contact. Do you want to tell them any more about that QR code? How can people find you after this? And let us know what to expect for next week, Dorian.
Yeah, so the best way to find me is probably on LinkedIn. My name is super unique, Dorian Cunyon. So you won't see a whole lot of them in your search bar. Beyond that, if you scan this QR code, it has a link that will take you to my newsletter. I have a newsletter that's specifically focused on small business owners. Each month, I provide a recap of different blogs that I've done, which just provides a lot of tips on how to grow your business, how to improve your strategy, how do you maintain your motivation and your happiness as you're trying to run a business. So if you've made it to this far, I appreciate you being on here. If you sign up using this QR code and you're interested in a coaching session, I'll actually give you 50% off. Madeline and I didn't talk about this beforehand. But if you took the time to watch an entire, podcast of this and you're hearing me say this, sign up for the newsletter, shoot me an email and say, I want my 50% off coaching session, and I'll do it for you.
I love that. That's awesome. And so we're going to meet Tuesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard for the next couple of weeks. Next week, we've got building trust, the foundation of teamwork, and we're actually going to bring in a guest speaker. And so we're very excited about that. We're looking again for this to be something that is not only interesting, potentially interactive, but actionable. So we're going to show you that we know what we're talking about by bringing in another expert, and we're going to build more into the foundation of creating a culture where a culture of trust where team members feel safe, respected, and valued, and the impact that that can have on your business. Final thoughts. We've got 5 minutes left on the call. I don't see any questions in the chat. Again, we thank you so much for being here. We're really excited to have this recorded and available. Again, my name is Madeline McMahon. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And we look forward to any feedback as we go along with this journey. All right. Well, this has been great. I'm just going to use this last minute to be candid and fun. That was awesome. We did it.
Yep, we did it.
Woo-hoo!
Got the first one done.
Got the first one done. Yay. And actually, genuinely, thank you to the people that participated. We appreciate the accountability and you all knowing you all were going to watch and stuff like that. So this was very exciting. I am absolutely open to any feedback from the people that were on. Dorian, I'm going to upload this video into a Google Drive probably because of the size of it. And then you'll have access to editing that. And we are planning to release our recordings the day after we have finished. So you should have access to this tomorrow, Wednesday, March 5th.
All right.
All
We'll have that
right.
posted for y'all. Look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much, everyone. This is great.